Full story. The sacred wolf statue stood still for 1,000 years, until it turned toward her copy text. Approx 2,100 words. True story. Third person. There is a small shrine on a mountain in Japan that most people have never heard of. It sits deep inside a cedar forest, up a narrow stone path that gets so quiet as you climb that you can hear your own breathing. The trees up there are very old. The moss on the rocks is thick. The air has a smell to it. Something like wet earth and old wood, and something else that is harder to name. Something that feels like it has been there for a very long time. At the entrance of this shrine, there is a wolf. Not a real one. A stone one. It was carved from a single block of dark granite more than 1,000 years ago, during a time when wolves were still sacred animals in Japan, creatures that people believed protected the mountain paths and kept evil away from travelers. The wolf is not very big. It sits low to the ground, maybe the height of a small dog. Its jaw is slightly open. Its ears are flat. Its eyes have been worn smooth by centuries of rain, so they look like two round stones, blank and pale and still. And for as long as anyone could remember, for as long as records existed, for as long as anyone had climbed that mountain, the wolf faced north. Always north. That was the thing people said about it. Priests who had served the shrine for 40 years said it. Old women in the village below said it. A historian who visited in the 1970s documented it in a paper. The wolf faced north. It had always faced north. It would always face north. That was simply what it did, until the morning it did not. The woman who was there that morning was a researcher. She had spent years studying old Japanese shrines, not because she believed in gods or miracles or sacred wolves, but because she found the stories interesting. She liked understanding why people had believed in things. She liked the old records, the dusty texts, the hand-painted maps of pilgrimage routes that nobody walked anymore. She was the kind of person who thought clearly and carefully about everything, and she was not someone who expected strange things to happen to her. She had come to this particular shrine because of a line she found in an old manuscript, a single sentence about a stone wolf that, according to the text, would one day turn to face its chosen one. She had written the word superstition in the margin next to it. She had not thought about it much after that. She just added the shrine to her list and kept working. She arrived at the mountain early, before the sun had fully come up. She had driven 2 hours the night before and stayed at a small inn in the village at the bottom of the path. The innkeeper, an older man with a slow, deliberate way of speaking, told her about the wolf over dinner. He said it the way you say something you have said many times before, not to impress anyone, just because it was true. He told her the wolf faced north. He told her not to touch it. Then he refilled her tea and did not say anything else about it. She started up the path at just past 6 in the morning. It was October, and the air was cold. Leaves had fallen across the stones, and she had to watch her step. She could hear water somewhere, a small stream maybe, running somewhere below the path. A bird was calling from somewhere high in the trees, but she could not see it. The forest was the kind of place that made you feel very small without being frightening, just very aware, very present. The shrine itself was smaller than she expected. A wooden gate, a stone basin with water in it for washing hands. 2 lanterns that were still burning from the night before, their small flames steady in the cold air. An offering box with a slot for coins. And then, to the left of the gate, on a flat stone platform about knee height, the wolf. She stood and looked at it for a moment before taking out her camera. It was exactly as the old records described. Stone, worn, moss covering its back and part of its face, jaw slightly open, ears flat, facing north, toward the dark wall of trees at the edge of the clearing. She took a photograph. The timestamp on the camera read 6:12 a.m. Then she did what she always did. She got to work. She photographed the gate, the inscriptions, the offering box. She recorded voice notes into her phone. She crouched down and looked at the base of the wolf, where someone had carved a few lines of old text into the stone platform beneath it. The characters were worn and not easy to read, but she could make out most of them. She took a brush from her bag and gently cleared away some of the loose dirt. She photographed the inscription. Then she stood up, tucked her notebook under her arm, and turned slightly to look at the view through the gate. That was when she noticed the shadow. The early sun was low and coming from the east, So everything in the clearing had a long shadow stretching to the left. She noticed the wolf's shadow on the flat stone ground, and something about it caught her eye. She looked at it for a second, without understanding why. Then she looked at the wolf itself. The wolf was not facing north. It was facing her. She did not scream. She did not run. She just stood very still and looked at it. The wolf's jaw was pointing in her direction. The smooth, worn eyes were aimed at her face. She was maybe 4 steps away from it, and she suddenly became very aware of that distance. The exact number of steps between her and a stone animal that had not moved in 1,000 years. Her first thought, and she said this afterward, was a practical one. She thought, I must have been wrong about which direction it was facing before. She thought, maybe I misread the records. Maybe the light was different, and I just thought it was facing north. She is a careful person. She does not jump to conclusions. So she went back to her camera, and she looked at the photograph she had taken at 6:12 a.m. In that photograph, the wolf was facing north. Clearly, unmistakably, the angle of its jaw, the line of its spine, the position of its ears, all pointing toward the tree line to the north. There was no question. She looked up at the wolf, then back at the photograph, then at the wolf again. She took 3 more photographs. The timestamp on the last one read 6:29 a.m. In those photographs, the wolf is facing southeast, facing exactly where she was standing. She stood in that clearing for a long time after that. She is not sure how long. She said it felt like the forest went quieter, though she could not explain why. The bird she had heard earlier had stopped calling. The stream was still there, but somehow far away. She looked at the base of the wolf, where stone meets stone, where it sat on its platform, and there was no crack, no fresh scratch, no line in the moss where something had shifted. The moss at the base was completely undisturbed. It looked the way moss looks when nothing has touched it in decades. She went back to the village that morning and asked to speak with the head priest of the shrine. He was a man in his 70s who had taken care of that mountain and that shrine for more than 40 years. When she showed him the photographs, the before and the after, side by side, he looked at them for a long time. Then he looked at her, then back at the photographs. He did not look surprised. That was the thing she remembered most. He did not look surprised at all. He told her something then that she had not read in any book or found in any manuscript. He told her that his teacher, the priest who had trained him, who had since passed away, had described this happening once before. A long time ago, before the war. A young woman had come to the shrine alone, early in the morning, and the wolf had turned toward her. Nobody else had been there to see it. The priest had believed her. And that woman, he said quietly, had survived something terrible that came later, something that took people all around her. He did not go into details. He just said that the wolf did not turn for the powerful, or the special, or the deserving. He said the old belief was that it turned for the ones who were going to need it. She wrote all of this down. She asked him what he thought she should do with the story. He thought about it. Then he asked her not to name the shrine in anything she published. He said the place was not meant to be famous. It was meant to do its work quietly, the way it always had. She agreed. And she kept that agreement. She went on to finish her research. She submitted her work. She moved on, the way you do. But she said the photographs stayed with her, not because she became superstitious, not because she started believing in miracles. She said they stayed with her because of what they showed that she could not explain. She had stood on that stone path with a camera and a notebook and no expectations. And something had happened that did not fit inside anything she knew how to say. The shrine's own caretakers photographed the wolf again 6 days later. In those photographs, it was facing north again. No explanation was given. No announcement was made. The shrine did not mention what had happened to anyone. The stone wolf sat at its post the way it always had, jaw slightly open, ears flat, facing north into the dark trees, waiting maybe, or just being what it had always been, old and quiet, and made of something that outlasts the people who try to understand it. And somewhere, the photographs still exist, time-stamped, unedited, taken by a woman who did not believe in things like this, and who walked up a mountain one cold October morning and came back down a little less certain about what she knew. Some things in this world do not ask for your belief. They simply happen. And if you happen to be there, all you can do is take the photograph and try to find the words. She is still looking for them,